For example 3, we're going to do y equals cosine of 4x plus 1. Let's go ahead and make our list. We are looking for amplitude, period, interval, and leave yourself a little bit of space. We're going to have some work for that one. Phase shift, vertical shift, and just for practice, domain and range. Before we get into this problem specifically, let's talk about the basics of cosine. First, our general equation. Y equals a cosine of bx plus c plus d. And if you haven't already, you're eventually going to want to memorize that general equation. It's just very convenient to know that off the top of your head. And then our mini graph, just to make sure that our end result looks the way it's supposed to. So reminder, cosine has a U shape to it. And this is just a very basic free-handed version, nothing too detailed. So this is our origin, and we've got 4 intervals out from there. Cosine starts at its maximum, whatever that is for the problem. Then we go down to the midline, down to the minimum, up to the midline, back up to the maximum to create that U shape. And then the pattern repeats from there. I find this very helpful because after we go through all of the work and setting up the graph and then trying to go back and remember what this is supposed to look like, it's nice to already have that information down on the paper to reference. All right, let's identify all of this information, starting with amplitude. Reminder, amplitude is the absolute value of A. And we still don't have a number in that place, so it's 1. Standard amplitude. Period is 2 pi over b. The last 2 problems we've done, b has been 1. That is not the case here. This is 2 pi over b is 4. Reduce that, it's pi over 2. That is our period. Interval is period over 4. So we have pi over 2 over 4. I'm going to do the full out math on this one good time. After that, there is a little trick you can memorize. Just use it carefully. So let me rewrite what we're doing here. Pi over 2 divided by 4. When you're dividing and you have 1 or 2 fractions, it doesn't matter. You have to have a fraction involved to do this. What's the rule for dividing with fractions? Anyone remember? Aiden? Yes. You're going to multiply by the reciprocal. A lot of you also learned keep, change, flip, whatever rings a bell for you. So I'll rewrite that as pi over 2 times 1/4. This becomes pi over 8. So our interval here is pi over 8. So you may realize what you could have done, if you knew that from the beginning, is you could just multiply the two denominators together. That would have been your new interval. So you may do that. Again, just use that carefully. If you want to write this out every time, completely fine with me. Phase shift. So up until this point, there's only been an x in here. There's not been a number attached to it. That number being there is not going to change anything, but I'm still going to do the math just to show that. So phase shift is when you set bx plus c equal to 0, so whatever's inside of those parentheses. So we have 4x equal to 0. And then if I solve for x, I'm still going to get x equals 0. And when that's your result, that means there's no phase shift. So we still have none for the phase shift. On a test or a quiz, either of these answers would be allowed. So it's whatever you want to do there. Vertical shift, that's the d value. And we do have a d value. It is 1. It's at the end of the equation. And I like to emphasize plus 1, as in up 1. Domain is always the infinities, negative to positive infinity. And range will be determined after I make my graph. So let's go ahead and set up our graph. And thinking ahead here, we're going to move up 1, so you're going to need a little bit more space on the y-axis. Just kind of think about that. Specifically on the top half. We'll have 4 intervals to the left and the right. Let's go ahead and work on our intervals. So we found our interval earlier to be pi over 8. Reminder, that is how far apart each of these notches are. So that means our first number here is pi over 8. There's going to be quite a bit of reducing here, so I'm going to write the original fractions at the bottom and then the reduced ones on the actual axis. So we have 1 pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, and 4 pi over 8. Reducing, we have pi over 8, pi over 4, 3 pi over 8, pi over 2. Once you find the right side, the left side's the same, just add negatives. Negative pi over 8, negative pi over 4, negative 3 pi over 8, negative pi over 2. Now let's figure out where we're going to start. So we would normally start at the origin, and our only shift here is up 1. So we're going to start at 1 on the y-axis. I'll draw our new midline here. And now we can start plotting our points. This is where this drawing comes in a lot of handy. So we need to start at the maximum, and that is determined by the amplitude. It's only 1. So from our starting point, we're only going to go up 1 more. That is going to be our maximum and where we start for the graph. To the right, we're just going to follow the pattern. We're at the max, so next we go down to the midline. And then we go down to the minimum for the next interval, which is down 1. So actually that will be at 0 on the x-axis. And then we're going to go back up to the midline for the next point. And then back up to the maximum for the last point on the right. We can go ahead and sketch a curve for now. And then the left side, once again, we're at a maximum here, so the only option is to go down. So we're going to go down to the midline for the next interval, down to the minimum for the second interval, back up to the midline for the third interval, and back up to the maximum for the fourth interval. And sketch. And a reminder, when your graph is done, you should have 9 points. As long as you set up your graph with the 4 intervals on each side, you will always hit that number. Lastly, the range. The range, the lowest it goes is 0, and the highest it goes is 2. So 0 to 2. Questions on this third example? Yeah. Yeah, so you find your starting point, and then that's determined by the amplitude from there. Our amplitude is 1, so that means we're just going to go up 1 and down 1 from there to get our max and min. Anything else?